You're watching the Vet Tunes Podcast, the show that shines a spotlight on military and veteran artists. Stand by for transmission. All right, transmission indeed. We are transmitting to you from the bunker here at Harmony Hill in the beautiful Shelbyville, Tennessee, just outside of Nashville. And we are absolutely honored to have with us today in studio Mr. Don Goodman. And we also have Mr. Jimmy Miller, a Air Force veteran and board member of Freedom Sings. And Don is here representing Freedom Sings. And you've heard me talk about Freedom Sings in several of our episodes, and it's just an honor to have you here. As a songwriter, some of his biggest hits are Old Red for Blake Shelton and Angels Among Us for Alabama. And we are honored to have you here today. We look forward to sharing what Freedom Sings is and does with our audience. But first, tell us a little bit about your journey to Nashville and songwriting and how it all started.
Well, in 1971, I was working in a factory in Detroit and went across the street on my lunch hour to have a burger, and sitting there waiting for my burger to cook, and got to thinking, man, if I don't do something, I'm going to spend the rest of my life right here working in a factory. And my wife's cousin taught me 3 chords on a guitar. And I'd been sitting in the neighbor's apple tree ever since I was 12 years old, writing poems and short stories. And that 3 chords on that guitar created a dream. And I started writing songs, and I left that bar, walked straight out to Fort Street in Detroit, Michigan, stuck my thumb out, hitchhiked home, didn't have keys. I had to crawl through the bathroom window. I packed up a couple clean shirts and some socks and my guitar, and I stuck all these songs I've written in a shoebox, and I took off for Nashville. Hitchhiked right down straight to Nashville. I was coming out of Chattanooga, and I stuck out my thumb, and I got a ride with a Kroger truck driver. And he took me into Nashville and dropped me off at the bus station. And I walked in the bus station, and I sat down by this old guy. And he said, "You a singer?" I said, "Well, I'd rather be a songwriter." He said, "You see all these guys sitting around here with guitars?" He said, "They're your competition." He said, "You see them guys without guitars? They sold them to get home on." I figured it's not going to be easy. That was a pretty good clue. So next day I went knocking doors, and God provides us with guided footsteps. I knocked on the right door, met Troy Seals. We wrote a song that morning, and I got it cut that night. I got it cut my first day in town. Yeah. No, but the song never did get released. But it gave them Quadraphonic Studio. It gave them and Troy Seals the faith in me to give me a $50 a week draw, and then they paid me an extra $100 to clean the studio. But by cleaning that studio, I got to sit through Neil Young, Joan Baez, Chris Christopherson, Waylon Jennings. I mean, I was going to college and getting paid for it.
That's amazing.
Isn't it?
You talk about an education.
Yeah. And you talk about guided footsteps.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never heard this, Don. What was that first song that...
It was As My Thoughts Go Back to You, and believe it or not, it was about a veteran. Around the corner by the ballpark, there's a young man who sells his candied apples. They said he could have been a great first baseman, but the war has left him out without legs. The only time he complains is when it rains and there is no game, no one to buy his apples.
Wow. That's incredible. How long were you in town and writing before you felt it really take off?
Well, it was about maybe Troy Seals and I started writing every day. Troy's in the Hall of Fame. He wrote Seven Spanish Angels, Lost in the 50s, Who's Gonna Fill Their Shoes. I mean, he's incredible. I was just, man, I just stumbled in. But we'd been writing about 6 months, and we wrote a song called Girl in New Orleans. And it was the follow-up to Help Me Make It Through the Night on Sammy Smith. And that got us off and running. And then we got cuts by Tina Turner, Wilson Pickett, Dovie Gray. I was on the Drift Away album. If you listen to Drift Away and you hear somebody clapping out of time, that was me.
That's you.
Yeah.
What a great cut that is.
Oh, man. And then, if we were in it about a year, and Will Jennings had come along. He's an incredible writer. The three of us started working together, and we wrote a song called "Feelings" that Conway Twitty and Loretta Lynn recorded, and they put it out as a single, and it went number one. It was my first number one, and nominated for a Grammy. And I'm thinking, like, it just don't get no better than this. And then I'm driving into town, and I see Loretta Lynn getting out of her car, and she's going into the back door of Coal Miner Music. And I flipped in the parking lot, and I got out of the car, and I said, "Excuse me, Loretta, my name's Don Goodman, and you and Conway just cut a song I helped write called Feelings." And she said, "I just wanted to stop and thank you for cutting it." And she looked at me and gave me that beautiful smile. And she said, "Oh, no, sugar. Thank you for writing it."
Oh.
I was 12 foot tall.
Oh. 10 feet tall and bulletproof.
Oh, bingo, brother.
Wow. How often as a songwriter do you get to meet the folks that are cutting your songs?
Because I've been here 50-something years, doing it, I've managed to meet just about all of them.
Oh, great.
And I've always noticed the bigger the star, the nicer the person. And it's so true. When you've accomplished so much, you don't have to try and tell nobody how good you are, So they're just humble folks,
Yeah. All right. So, Jimmy, you have been in the Air Force for 33 plus years.
My entire life.
That is crazy. So you just came in right after high school.
I did. I mean, I joined when I was 17, so my dad had to sign for me, but I didn't leave for basic training. I think I'd been 18 for a month. So growing up in Tullahoma, Tullahoma was a small town, especially back then. And I was like, what do I want to do in my life? And my grandparents had raised me, so my grandfather was always watching old Westerns and old war movies. So I grew up, watching John Wayne and Clint Eastwood, and that made me think, hey, I want to be a soldier. And my original branch was the Marine Corps. And I wanted to be a Marine. I wanted to be like Clint Eastwood. I wanted to have a sword. And then my dad, I took the Marine recruiter to him, and he walked up to meet my dad, and he had that sharp, crisp uniform. And, he was telling my dad all the things they could make me. And when he walked off, I was like, what do you think, Dad? He goes, son, there is no way I will sign paperwork for you to be a Marine. He goes, I just don't feel comfortable. He goes, that scares me too much. He goes, now, if you want to wait till you turn 18 and sign up, he goes, that's your choice. So just so happened I had a friend that was going in the Air Force. And he's like, well, Jimmy, come up here and meet the Air Force recruiter. And of course, Marine Air Force, they're two different entities. So I met the Air Force recruiter, talked to him. I was like, I'm 17. Let me introduce you to my dad. So finally, when I took the Air Force recruiter over, my dad's like, he met him. He goes, son, he goes, I figured out that this military thing is not going to go away. He goes, so I will sign for you to go in the Air Force. So I actually signed up to go in the Air Force while I was still a senior in high school. I had about 8 months before I actually turned 18 and could go to basic training.
Now, was the base was here in Tullahoma?
No, I actually, well, of course, everybody goes to San Antonio, and then the Marines have dream sheets.
To a degree.
Okay, so
To a degree.
I'm feeling
You're going to get whatever they give you anyway, but
well, I was 18, naive, and never been out of Tullahoma other than maybe Nashville. So I get this dream sheet, and they're like, anywhere in the world you want to go, you put on here. So I've got Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Florida. I've got all the southern states covered. Well, the day it came for me to get my orders, the instructor walked in. He goes, you got your wish. He goes, you got the South. And I'm like, he goes, you're going to Ramstein, Germany. And I'm like, I'm looking at him all shocked. He goes, that's Southern Germany. I'm like, you know how they are. So
yeah.
How long were you in the Air Force?
33 years, 6 months, and 18 days.
Yeah, not that anybody was counting or anything.
I'm going.
Yeah.
The 33 years flew by. That 6 months, and especially those last 18 days, were probably the longest of my life.
Arnold Air Force Base is right here in Tullahoma, which is about 20 minutes from Shelbyville. Was the base there?
It was, and it was on my dream sheet.
Okay. So, I mean, did that impact your wanting to serve in the Air Force, knowing that there was, the base there, or did the service kind of subliminally come on your radar, knowing that there was a base there?
No, not really. Because that base, the things they do, the mission they do, civilians don't get on there. So I really didn't know anybody that worked at that base. I didn't have any uncles, siblings, or anything in the military. I was the first one that said, hey, let me go to the military.
Yeah. My grandfather was in the Navy, and I had an uncle who was in the Air Force. But other than that, it really wasn't on anybody's radar, for me to go into the service. I did wind up, I applied to 2 colleges. One of them was East Carolina for their School of Music. And then the other one was the Citadel, which was in Charleston. It was a military school. After visiting East Carolina University, I realized I never would have finished. I would have gotten in a band and dropped out of school or flunked out of school or something. So I knew I needed a little bit of structure. So I wound up doing that. And then, graduated and went into the Marine Corps. But music was always part of my life. It was always a little bit of an escape, But I don't know that it was on anybody's bingo card for me to go in the Marine Corps, let alone, do just shy of 3 decades. But, the music was always... It was always there. There was always a guitar on deployments and things like that, and I knew that when I finished serving in the Marine Corps, whenever that would be, that, we're going to surround ourselves with music. So, and that's what brings us here today. And that's how I got to meet you and the whole Freedom Sings team and David Corlew and all those folks that are out there doing just really great things for and with veterans. Freedom Sings USA programs. The one that I'm most familiar with is the one that takes place in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, just outside of Nashville. You have folks over there in Chattanooga, and then I believe
we formed it in Chattanooga.
Oh, it was formed in Chattanooga. Mm-hmm. All right. We were just doing a radio interview a little bit earlier today, and one of the things you said, the way you worded it, talking about the power of music,
Angels Among Us taught me what music can do. It showed me how powerful a song can be. And it's a blessing to me. And Old Red, well, that was a blessing to Blake.
Yeah.
He was new. He was getting started in that song. Took him over the top.
For me, I grew up with mostly rock, not necessarily in the country vein, but started to kind of hear different songs. But when I heard that song, I knew there was just something special about it because it kept you listening. Like, where's this going? And then when it paid off at the end, you're like, that's brilliant.
It was a punchline of a joke.
Oh, yeah.
And every time people come up to me and they go, "You wrote Old Red?" I said, "Yeah, I did." "Yeah, love got me in there and love got me out, buddy." Yeah, I'm like, yeah, sure does.
That is such a great line. One of the things you were talking about earlier with Angels Among Us is the many ways that it's been used and how people have told you how much it has impacted their lives.
I've had women just come up crying and say, every time I hear that song, I'm at my mama's funeral. That was the one, and the lady just said, she just went on and on and on. She says, it's like I get my mother back when I hear that song. And it's like, whoa, I'm crying, she's crying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you said it helped raise tens of millions of dollars.
It's raised a whole bunch of millions of dollars for the St. Jude's Hospital. It's the theme song of the St. Jude's Hospital. And we used to go there every Christmas, and Randy would sing the song, and you'd see all those mamas holding those little bald-headed babies, and then go back to next year, and those babies would have hair, and the mamas would be smiling, and it's just like, miracle.
Yeah, that's amazing, and music can transform.
Oh,
it
my
can.
God.
I'm a firm believer that it has healing powers. Whether you're just receiving music or whether you are participating in the creation of it, that it's just a powerful thing.
I had another song that Lee Greenwood did called "Ring on Her Finger, Time on Her Hands," and I was at Fanfare in Nashville, and I was in the Songwriters booth signing autographs. And I saw this lady, she just kept looking and looking around people, and she stood in line forever. And when she got up to me, she said, you wrote "Ring on Her Finger, Time on Her Hands"? I said, "Yes, ma'am, I did." She said, "You saved my life." And I said, "Would you like to elaborate on that?" And she said, I was going through a divorce. I'm Church of Christ, and I knew if I got that divorce, I might not be going to heaven. And she said, I had gone to the drugstore. I had bought the pills. I was on my way home to take them when that song came on the radio.
Oh.
So I pulled my car to the side of the road, and then when that song was over, I threw those pills out the window.
Wow.
She said, I knew whoever wrote that, if they survived, I could too. It just... I'm a story songwriter, all my songs are stories, and like I said, I was 12 years old writing stories, and I can remember, the sound of the horse hoofs off the wooden bridge on its way into town, never knowing they would be the last you would ever hear, and drama queen here, or drama king, I guess.
What brought you to Freedom Sings USA? Like, what was the catalyst, or what was the thought process behind that?
Okay, I started out with Operation Song, all right, and we were doing a weekly class at Sergeant York VA here in Murfreesboro. And the first time I went, I got invited to go sit in on the class. And I went, and I'll never forget it. There were about 5 or 6 veterans sitting around this table. And Bob Regan was interviewing him, and he said, "Well, what'd you do for breakfast this morning?" I said, "Well, I went to McDonald's." Bob said, "Do you go there often?" He said, "No, but there's a group of veterans that meet over there in the morning about 9 o'clock." And he said, we kind of sit there and kind of have a little fellowship and talk about things we can't talk about to others. And he said, Bob said, "Well, what'd you have for breakfast?" And he said, "A sausage and a biscuit." And we sat there that day and wrote a song called Sausage and a Biscuit. And there wasn't a dry eye at the table by the time we were done. And hell, I was hooked. I've been there ever since, you know.
It started with sitting down with veterans and sharing their stories and turning them into song. And you've been doing this now for how many years?
Since 2013, I think, is when I first started. So this would be, 12 years and 500 songs later.
Wow. And you've been able to pull in some pretty amazing songwriters in their own right to come and participate in that. What's the reaction from songwriters, you know, when you ask them to come participate in this, and then once they've actually been there and they had that kind of awakening to, you know, to what happens in the room, you know, what has some of their reaction been like?
Well, it's like here in Murfreesboro, all right? I've had Dave Gibson, Ships That Don't Come In, Gary Gentry, The Ride, you know. I have these songwriters come that wrote some of their favorite songs. So everybody keeps coming back just to see who's going to be there. You know, and then I bring in a bunch of young songwriters. We work with John Taylor down at Tootsie's and Kid Rock's and Honky Tonk Central, and they got all these incredible young musicians down there. And the other night we had a couple of John's kids down there, and boy, they saved the day. We had a tough fight, and those two kids did not give a damn. They just wanted to let it happen.
Young gun, guitar slinging, songwriting.
Yeah, and you were there.
Oh, yeah.
So you can say that.
Oh,
You were there.
It was awesome.
And so were you.
It was a tough night, but it was a good night.
It was a song that was just really hard to write, and we were all kind of intimidated. But them two young kids, they didn't give a damn. They just picked them guitars up and said,
jumped right into the deep end. Here we go, fellas. Strap in. Yeah. No, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
I think back in 2009, I met David Corlew, and we have, you know, kind of stayed in touch ever since. And now that I'm here in the greater Nashville area, one of the people that he turned me on to was you and Freedom Sings USA. And as I started doing a little research and realized that there's a group that meets on the second and fourth Thursday of the month right there in Murfreesboro, which is 30 minutes away, I had to go. I'm trying to think of when the time frame was. I want to say it was somewhere around 2000. I think it was actually around 2013. And I had come to Nashville to record an EP. I had met David Corlew, who is a longtime friend, business partner, and manager of Charlie Daniels and the Charlie Daniels Band. And they have the Journey Home Project, which is an outstanding organization that helps fundraise and provide resources to different organizations and nonprofits. He was the one that turned me on to Freedom Sings USA and the Murfreesboro chapter. So I had to go check that out. And, you know, as I did some research and realized that you were the one that was kind of hosting and organizing, you know, the opportunity to go there, meet some of the songwriters that you were bringing in, you know, just an incredible opportunity for veterans, not only to watch how songwriting, works, but kind of the therapeutic aspects of bringing veterans together and having them kind of tell their stories when normally they wouldn't want to.
Well, David Corlew and Charlie Daniels have been lifesavers for us when we first got this program going and off the ground. They have been there every step of the way, sponsoring us, raising money for us to, we don't take a penny from veterans, nothing, not 1 cent. This is just free. And David and Charlie have helped us raise money that made that possible. Hey, a funny little thing, Mike, when I first met Charlie, we were at a fundraiser downtown in Nashville, and Charlie says, "Damn, Don, I came this close to cutting old red." And I said, "Well, damn, Charlie, I came this close to being your biggest fan."
So, Jimmy, you spent a lot of time in the Air Force in service as a veteran. What brought you into the Freedom Sings USA fold?
So this is really kind of interesting because I'm not musical. Now, I love music, played everything from Elvis to Eminem. So I've always loved music, but when I retired, and this is how, what'd you call them? God steps? God's footprints?
Guided footsteps.
Guided footsteps. So I retired, and I'd been going to the VA, and the VA, probably a little bit over a year before I retired, they told me I had PTSD, which now, if you'd asked me, I'd have told you 100% there's no way in the world I would ever have that. I'm a happy guy. But after a couple of months, they finally convinced me that, yeah, when I started listening or really listening, I'm like, I do have PTSD. I was like, that explains a lot of things in life. So they're like, you're retiring. The worst thing for a veteran to do is retire and sit at the house. They're
Amen.
like, you need to find a hobby. Well, when you spend as long as I have in the military is your life and your hobby because everything you did was around the military. So just so happened at the same time, the American Legion's like, we need a co-host for a radio show. They're like, do you want to give it a try? I'm like, I don't know nothing about radio, but why not? So I get there probably within a month of being at the radio show. Don Goodman is our special guest. And he was just starting up the Murfreesboro class. And it was the second class that he invited me to. He's like, Jimmy, I want you to come to class. I was like, and I told him the same thing. I'm like, Don, I'm not musical. When you see a guy at a concert clapping out of rhythm, that's me. And he goes, but I want to hear your story. I was like, Don, I ain't got no story. I served, I enjoyed it. That's the end. He goes, you've got a story. So the second class they ever had in Murfreesboro, I was at, and I was in the hot seat. So, and when I say hot seat, it's really not. We started talking and had a conversation. And after his poor daughter, Tiffany, wrote a book, Don's like, whoo, he goes, I think we've got a song here. So then we broke it down to, hey, what was important about your career that nobody else really knows and that you want people in the future or your kids to know? So that's what we focused on and wrote the song.
I think what I said to you was, Jimmy, 30, 40 years from now, when your great-grandchildren hear this song, what do you want them to know? What do you want to tell them that you're so proud of?
And that's what we wrote a song about. But that song was not, nobody in my family knew anything that was in that song. So it wasn't just, what did I want them to know about me? But it was, hey, all the things that I've never told anybody, let's let them out. Let's put them in a song, because several things I found from that. One, in a song, my family could understand it better. And it wasn't, what do I say? it was easier for them to digest. It was easier for me. You know, if you try to sit down and tell your loved ones something that's happened to you in the past, it's not an easy conversation to have. With this song, it made it so much easier. They could listen to the very end. They got the whole story, and then we could have a conversation. But it was like the icebreaker. And then for me, after that first class, you ever try food for the first time? You didn't know you'd like it. You didn't even know you needed it. And then all of a sudden, it's your favorite thing in the world. This class, I did not know I needed music. I didn't know I needed the camaraderie that we have and the friendships. But after going to the class, I'm like, this is not my only purpose in life, but it's given me a purpose. So when John told me they would love for me to join the board of directors, I'm like, you know, this is something I've seen heal. This is something I firmly believe in. It's gave me a purpose. So I happily joined the board.
Nice.
We needed an E9.
Well, he needed a purpose.
I kind of felt the same way. I had heard about Freedom Sings USA. Hadn't been there yet. And, you know, now that you've been here to the studio and you've seen our Harmony Hill, and, you know, I got here early 2023 and spent the better part of the next 2 years just building this place, and spent a lot of time, you know, in isolation. And you start having, you know, lots of thoughts and feelings, and there's a lot there, you know, I didn't really care to go out, you know, and this is post retirement. I didn't realize how big of a transition is, you know. I mean, because I used to be the one to give the speeches and, you know, do the exit interviews and what are you gonna, you know, and all the stuff, and hey, you know, but I found that I couldn't follow my own advice that I was given to people, right? And I really rarely left here. And so I went there that night. It was a Thursday night, drove to Murfreesboro, and it just felt right. It just felt, it felt like that's where I needed to be, you know. And then to go back there, it gives, you know, it gave me a reason to mark it on the calendar and go and get out, you know. So there's so many aspects to it other than, you know, just the music piece, but it's you know, it's a very healing experience. It's fun. You know, you still get the camaraderie of the different services and the banter back and forth.
Oh yeah,
and,
get to pick on each other.
Oh yeah. So, you know, that's just something that we all share and, you know, and enjoy doing. You know, what's it like for you, Don, to be in the middle of the room when everybody's just taking shots at each other and just, you know, because it's a different language, it's a different culture.
It took me a little getting used to, and then when I realized that's your camaraderie, that's how you guys talk to each other when you were in the barracks or in the bar.
Mm.
You know, and I remember, you know, the first time you threw a line out, you're almost a little hesitant. I could tell it, but you threw it out, and I used it because I knew you're music, man. You got the music in you, and I knew you were going to be a valuable asset. So, you know, I wanted to encourage you. And now I've noticed, like the other night when we were fighting our asses off trying to get that song going, you threw the line out there that got me going down the right path.
Yeah, it was a little intimidating to go there the first night. So I roll in and there's you and Dave Gibson and you know, and a host of veterans. Your daughter there is kind of the scribe and, you know, capturing everything that's said so that we can come back to it later. But little intimidating to roll in there with you and Dave Gibson, you know, and your your repertoire and just to. I didn't necessarily wanted to throw out a line or two that was just like I'm just saying words to say words. I mean, it's like but that's just me.
Yeah, but see, you were talking from experience. When you threw lines out, you've been there. You've been right through what the guy in the hot seat had been through. So
Yeah.
you had worth, you had value.
The thing that I think is that made it easier for me, or perhaps easier for the people that are in the hot seat, is you do have a group of fellow veterans that are around you, and when you're in the seat, and it's not any kind of crazy pressure or anything like that, but you want to represent yourself well and your family well and your service well, and sometimes having a few extra thoughts or ideas get kind of thrown out there, it helps the process move along, and it helps the song come to fruition.
And you know what's so cool? I have noticed, like I say, I've been doing this a long time now. 2 guys serving in the exact same place. They were there on the same day. They never knew each other. They never met. But I wrote both their songs. And one saw something and the other saw totally different. So every veteran sees it through their heart, through their eyes. One's mad and because his buddy got killed and he's just wanting to get revenge. And the other's over there going, "Oh, Lord, please let me survive this." They say there's no such thing as an atheist in a foxhole.
Mm.
Well, it speaks volumes when these veterans tell it like it is.
Yeah. So Freedom Sings USA has the Murfreesboro chapter. You have a chapter in Chattanooga. Now, Steve Dean was in the other night, and he was one of the co-writers. And then he wound up going out to, I want to say, Southern California, L.A.
Northern California.
Okay, Northern California.
And we're starting a new class out there. We got 3 new classes starting in Illinois. We're going to Kansas City. We're going to Florida. We're going, if we can find sponsors to help us, we're going to go nationwide this year.
No.
I don't think there's should be anything, never be anything that you would call an unsung hero or an unsung veteran. That story needs to be told.
Yeah.
I had a little kid one time, 8 years old, after we sang his daddy's song, he was pulling on my pant leg and he says, "Hey, Mr. Goodman." I looked down and said, "Yeah, buddy, what you need?" He said, "Thank you, sir." He said, "And now I think I know why my daddy cries sometimes."
Mm.
Yeah, same here, buddy.
Ouch. Wow. I mean, at 8. Wow. That's powerful.
When they say the things that they can't say or they never said to another soul on the face of this earth, we're pretty close to the title.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just might have the name of the song on that next line.
Oh, yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
And what amazes me about the class is Green Berets, Rangers. I've seen every walk of life and every kind of soldier. And just like me, they don't think they have music in them, but as they come, everybody's got music in them. It is so wild to see somebody who doesn't say something for 2 months. All of a sudden, you're like, "Has anybody got any thoughts?" And they throw a line out, and it's like, "Oh, they're hooked now. They're one of us. You've got that music coming out of you. You're something."
Yeah. And it's just, it's just amazing. You give you back your community.
Yeah.
You give you back, but you come home, man. I'm not a veteran. I feel like I'm doing more with my pen than I could have ever done with a rifle. But you guys, man, you got each other's backs. And it's just such a camaraderie at that table. It's like, it's love.
Yeah.
And You know, the other night when you did the clipboard thing, you know, you didn't realize you were right behind a person with severe PTSD. She was a truck driver in Iraq, and every time she came in off a mission, there were new bullet holes in her truck. And you did that slam down thing on the thing that, you know, that you
the
see
cinema
in the movies.
marker. Yeah.
And she almost had a heart attack because it sounded just like a bullet going past her ear.
Yeah.
And you went out in the parking lot with her and you was apologizing.
And then realizing that I was what triggered that, I
PTSD.
felt terrible.
But it's so sensitive, you know, a gun going off, fireworks going off, a car backfiring, you know, and you got guys who've been girls who've been there, who've been shot at, who know what it is to know that you might not live through this next 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even imagine the courage it takes.
Well, that brings me to a question. I've meant to ask you this for a long time. So you hear all of our stories, and most of them are, I want to say, not the happiest of stories. So you're hearing, 500 stories of PTSD. Once we tell you our story, do you walk away with part of that? I mean, does that affect you as an artist?
I sometimes dream your stories at night. I've heard veterans say, did you go to Vietnam? And they go, yeah, last night. Yeah, I've been there.
I've always wondered how hearing our stories affected the songwriters and artists that are there with us.
I have the absolute utmost respect for you guys and girls. I mean, I can imagine being what I've, like that song Ghost Ship that we did in class.
Yeah.
You know, that song when Best Buddy, they met in line to at the enlistment center and got to talking and shook hands and joined up to the Navy together on the buddy system. And they were serving on the Oriskany in Vietnam. They were launching those jets into the jungle and then guiding them in with flares. And then somehow when they were putting the flares away, one of them ignited, blew up the whole storage place, set the ship on fire.
Yeah, the whole hangar deck.
Yeah, 44 sailors lost their life that night, including the best friend that had met Doug in the enlistment line. And Doug fought his way out of the smoke down in the boiler room, got up on the main deck, and they had all the bodies laid out. And then there he saw his buddy Bill. And now every night in his dreams, he serves on the ghost ship, the Oriskany. He went to see it, and they told him it was haunted because the lights flicker off and on every now and then. He says that ghost ship sails from dusk to dawn. And he's on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I've always wondered because just hearing all the other veteran stories, it always has a little bit of effect on me, reminds me of something. So I always wonder what goes through your mind because sometimes we tell in pretty vivid details where you can, in your mind, picture. So, yeah, I've always wondered about that.
I get calls from like Gary Gentry, who wrote The Ride, and he says, man, he says, I can't get that song out of my head. He says, that song, I don't care where I am. I'm riding in the car, wherever I am, that song still plays in my mind. He says, just like The Ride, and Dave Gibson, you.
Oh, yeah. And that's one of my favorite parts about the class. And I mean, all of a sudden, I'm sitting in the room with the man that wrote The Ride.
Right?
I mean, one of my favorite songs is Ships That Don't Come In. All of a sudden, I'm sitting in the room with the man that wrote it, and he's singing it. And
then, he breaks out the guitar and just starts singing it.
Yeah, and it's like, because I'm not quite as old as some of y'all, so I'm getting to live country history that nobody gets to live. It's amazing.
Yeah.
If you're out there and you're a veteran and you have the means to get to Murfreesboro, Tennessee, come on, sit in with us. Sit in there and watch magic happen. I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah,
It is magic.
it is. Part of the beauty of it, for me is, anytime that I play music or write music or whatever, I feel better. I just physically feel better, right? And then to get in a room with other veterans and there's music occurring and creative things happening and songs being written. I mean, for me, it's better. It's better than the pills. It's better than the bar, and you get to go there and just have that fellowship, and you don't have to be a musician or a songwriter,
No, and it don't cost a penny.
and it doesn't cost a penny, and that the fact that there are programs out there like that, it's amazing. And then, that you would be so giving of your time and your gift and your talents, and then to be able to bring in friends and sit down and do that with veterans, it's really awesome, and we appreciate it.
To get a phone call from a veteran, the greatest compliment I've ever received from a veteran. We wrote his song, we gave him a copy of it. He came back to class the next week. And I said, well, what do you think about your song? He says, I think you've listened.
You don't have to be a musician or a songwriter to go to these events. And I think, Jimmy, you're a perfect example of that. You went there and, shared your story. And from that, your song came about. Tell us about that.
So my song was called Fallen Brothers. And it was one of those things I'd never even thought about. So over a 6-month time period, I ended up loading 254 fallen soldiers to come home. And when I say loading them, they would fly in from the desert to Germany. I would go out to the plane, make sure, I was inventorying everything on the plane, but especially the fallen. I was making sure, the shipping declaration was right. It matched the same person all the paperwork. Well, normally they'd send somebody out to ice the bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a human remains case it's not light, so one person can't take it off. So I'd stay out there and help them because I was already there. So, and when you do something repetitively like that, my mind had compartmentalized it. It's my job. We never really thought of them. I got so desensitized to what I was doing. I mean, it was just cargo. I never thought about, hey, this is another soldier. He's going on his final ride home. His family, are suffering. It became, and I didn't even actually realize what I was doing until I sat in the class. And I can't remember if it was you, Dawn, or somebody else said, hey, you don't call them soldiers. You refer to them as, cargo, human remains. Like, I never put a face to it. And that's what I learned out with the VA too. I'd never took time to process what I'd done until all of a sudden everything else piled up, and then it became overwhelming. And then I ran out of little boxes to compartmentalize everything.
Mm-hmm.
So my song was Fallen Brothers, and it was about that time period in my life. We talk about me being in Germany. We talk about all the bodies that I loaded on the plane. And that was the first time anybody in my family had ever heard any of that. They had no idea what I was doing over there. So it was, it was great for me to get it out and tell that story. It was great for my family to finally hear it. Because when I come back, the first thing, I went to a civilian doctor. He's like, yeah, I'm having trouble sleeping. It's a big time change. Let's put you on Ambien. So I've been on Ambien now for 20 years. That's not the route to go.
Mm-mm.
Later on, I started getting what I thought was restless leg syndrome. Doctor gave me a pill for restless leg syndrome. Hey, okay, you can't sleep. Your legs are jerking at night. So only, let's see, I'm trying to do math in my head. It was 18 years later before I found out what the true causes of all that was. Because when I went to the VA, they're like, you've been taking Ambien for 18 years? I'm like, yeah. I didn't know there was anything wrong with that. But then they're like, hold on, you got restless leg syndrome? I'm like, yeah. Thought I was normal as could be. And then they're like, you've got PTSD. They're like, the reason you can't sleep is because of the nightmares at night. They're like, the restless leg syndrome. They're like, it's not restless leg syndrome. They're like, even though you can't remember, because I started Ambien as soon as I come back, they're like, that is you having nightmares and your body shaking from the nightmares. So, and like I said, it took almost 2 months for me to buy into what they were telling me, but everything started making sense. And it's like, okay, so I was taking a pill for this. I didn't need a pill for this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, luckily, I'm on the right medication, but for the right treatment. I mean, it's no longer restless leg. I still take Ambien, but as they told me, I'd taken so long to deal with it. They're like, it's permanent. It's never going to change. And because after being on Ambien for 18 years now, my mind won't shut off at night. I can't go to sleep without it.
You know what I sit here listening to you talk goes through my mind? Every day there was another mother's son or fallen brother. I brought them home. I brought them all home with me, and they visit me when I sleep.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. The words that we wrote we couldn't have got no truer.
Yeah. I heard that song this morning. It put me right there. I mean, you see everybody's seen the pictures and the videos of the ramps, and then, the handoff at Dover and that kind of thing. And, yeah, I mean, that to be there and do that job, and, you have to, as a senior airman, you've got to get the job done, number one. Number two, you've got to, make sure that everybody else is doing what they need to do, and you've got an aircraft that you need to, make sure is in tip top shape. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's happening. So, that's not something that you just unpack immediately, but now to take the time and realize, kind of all of the things and all of the effects. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It takes toll.
Like when that year I was an E6. So, I had the rank to not do that job, but I had a lot of young airmen that they would break down. They just couldn't do
Sure.
it. But being as I'd been in the military so long, I'm like, hey, this is our job. It has to be done. So I'm like, I've got your place. I'd go out there and, I never realized what a toll it was taking on me till, years down the road.
Much later.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it did. That song that night, being able to do it, it's opened a lot of doors, and it's explained a lot of things to a lot of my family. Funny thing happened to me after we did that song, and I met with my cousin and his wife. We were sitting there, and I was letting them listen to it and stuff, and they didn't know I have PTSD. So I was telling them about that. I'm like, yeah, I was like, the VA told me I had PTSD. And she's always been civilian, never around any military. She looks at me with the sweetest voice and goes, Jimmy, you don't look crazy. And I'm like, sweetheart, I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
You know what? But if you come home, these young guys come home, and they don't want that label because of that very reason. you don't look crazy, because they're afraid everybody will think they're crazy. They can lose their job. They can use their driver's license, and everybody's
Clearance, flight status,
yes.
all that. Yeah.
And that's why young guys come home. They're in denial. They don't want to run that risk of scaring their family to death by telling them anything. And they live on this island of depression. I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine what kind of courage it takes to not talk about it.
Mm.
Well, and that's how we have 22 a day, because too many soldiers come back, and that first trauma to you, you start digging that hole. And the longer your career and the more trauma, the deeper and deeper it gets till you don't see any way out. And that's the cycle we've got to break. That first trauma, that should be when you start getting help. And, you don't get that hole so deep that you get to the point where you feel you can't get out.
I got to say this for the songwriters, all right? A gold or platinum record cannot hold a candle to a phone call at 2 a.m. saying, brother, I had a gun in my mouth again, but I didn't pull the trigger. I just listened to the song.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Lord. Boo. Got that one right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gave you a gift. That is the truth.
So how do people learn more about Freedom Sings USA?
Well, you can go. We have website freedomsingsusa.org. You can go there. We have videos. We have our music. We have recent projects we've working on. We have the class schedule. We have retreats listed on there. We're in the middle of changing the website, so it will change in a couple of months, but that will get you there every time. We also have a Freedom Sings USA Facebook page. We have a Freedom Sings Murfreesboro Facebook page. The Murfreesboro page has got every right we do. I videotape it and I put it on, usually just so everybody in the class can share it. And then the veteran, they can hear their song without us waiting a month for us to get it through production and actually but they have something to show their family or friends if they want to.
Yeah.
And here's the biggie. If you're incapacitated, if you're DAV or you can't travel, we have a Zoom class every other Wednesday if you can just get on the computer and go on Zoom. We have people in Alaska, everywhere in the whole country, all over the world, guys on active duty. And they don't come every week. They just come when they need help. And we've only missed, I'm going to say, a handful of Wednesdays in 14 years. We're there. They told us we were building a dependency. No, we are not. We're building a dependent on.
Mm.
If you need that community back,
Yeah.
if you need to feel your veterans have your back, come to class.
So freedomsingsusa.org.
Yeah.
All right.
And you just put, I'd like to come to any one of the classes and go there. And there's a place where you can just ask questions or do whatever you want. And we will contact you and we will tell you a class near you, or we will send you an invitation to the Wednesday Zoom class.
Beautiful.
So we will be there.
If you're looking for a cause or a veteran program to donate to, Freedom Sings USA. It's a great organization. I've seen what y'all do. I'm excited to be a part of it, to be able to go down to Murfreesboro and sit in on those classes with just Hall of Fame songwriters and a great group of veterans. I mean, it's just a great program, and the fact that it's that it's music oriented, that's what brings me to it. But whether you want to participate in it, go to freedomsingsusa.org and find out where they are, when those events are going. If you want to donate to it, again, go to the website, and all that stuff is there. So
another thing too, if you want to bring Freedom Sings USA to your hometown, to your town, if you'll go to freedomsings.org, USA.org, and say, this is Tullahoma, Tennessee, or this is Huntsville, Alabama, we would love to bring Freedom Sings to our city. We'll come. Just set it up. We just did 5 songs in Huntsville, Alabama this weekend. 2 weeks ago, we were in Illinois. We've been all over the country this summer. And we'll bring hit songwriters to your hometown. And if you've got a club there in town, we'll book the songwriters into that club after we do the veteran thing. They can come. You can hear hit songwriters in your own town singing their hits. We'll work with you. Anything we can do to help the veterans, we will be there.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, thank you for joining us here at Harmony Hill and for the Vet Tunes podcast. What you're doing is critical. It's important, and it's fun. It's a great service that you provide veterans. And if you're a veteran out there, and you're anywhere near remotely interested in music, or just in finding a group of veterans, Freedom Sings USA, you got to check it out. Sir, thank you so much for coming down to here to come see us, and we look forward to more stories from the organization.
Absolutely our pleasure and our honor to be here, sir. Thank
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mike, for all you do for Freedom Sings and for what you're giving to the Cheville community, our veterans. I mean, this is amazing.
Oh, thank you. Well, we enjoy it. All right. So with that, make sure you check out freedomsingsusa.org. And for more on the Vet Tunes podcasts and our guests and special in-studio live performances, go to vettunespodcast.com. All right. That's it for us. Vet Tunes Podcast out.